It's time to discuss the graphic novels and manga that I read in August. The first graphic novel that I read in the month of August was Far Sector by Nk Jemisin, illustrated by Jamal Campbell. This is a Green Lantern spin-off. It has a female protagonist lantern. She is a woman of color and she is hot as fuck. Dude, I did not think I would like this book as much as I did. We have a female lantern going to the edge of space by herself, her first mission as a lantern, and there's 3 different species in like a political conflict. And she kind of has to figure out why people are suddenly getting murdered on this planet where there hasn't been murder in like thousands of years. Honestly, it would make a really good movie. I don't want to say that because I feel like a lot of movies ruin books, but it's a graphic novel. It might as well be a screenplay. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I highly recommend picking it up if you like superheroes, sci-fi. That's the reason I like Green Lantern, is because it's like one of the more sci-fi superheroes. So 5 out of 5, highly recommend. The next graphic novel that I read was Lore Olympus by Rachel Smythe. This graphic novel has been all over my Goodreads feed. I know that Rachel Smythe is a web comic? Is that the right term? Web comic? She draws web comics. Lore Olympus is basically a run-of-the-mill Persephone Hades romance, but it's a little modern, it's a little goofy, it's silly, it's cute, and it's colorful. It's not something I normally would gravitate towards, but I read some of the reviews and it seemed good. I did enjoy it. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars, I believe. I have the second book on reserve and I'm looking forward to seeing more of her work. So, as you know, I have been reading through the Beastars manga. I read volumes 7 through 10 in the month of August. It's okay. I feel like as the romance side of the series subsides, I'm just kind of bored. Maybe I'm just outgrowing Beastars. I really want to finish the series because it is like a series that's done. I'm becoming less and less interested as the series goes on, as Legoshi starts training more and him discovering who is killing off his classmates. I'm just kind of over it. Maybe it's because I watched the second season of Beastars and I didn't like the second season. It was kind of gross, but like in a boring way. I don't know. I'm gonna try to get through the rest of the books. I don't know if I am really interested in reading any more in the next month or 2. I think I need a break. I've been steadily rating these books 3 stars and I'm okay with a 3-star book, but I'm not like, hey, I can't wait to read this 3-star book, you know? But yeah. There's been a bunch of great graphic novels and manga that I've read, and I'm just not happy with Beastars at this point in time as of the 10th book that I read. And yeah, that's it. The next graphic novels that I read were Sweet Tooth volumes 4 and 5 by Jeff Lemire. These books just get better and better. The way that I audibly gasped at the end of book 4, I just can't believe how good these books are. I am very, very anxious to finish the books. I've been waiting way too long for the 6th one from my library. It's taking, you know, everything in me not to buy the omnibus that I saw at the comic book store. I'm gonna have to be patient and wait my turn to finish Sweet Tooth. Again, 5 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend picking up the series. I read volumes 2 and 3 of Spy Family. As I've mentioned in one of my previous videos when I read the first book, Spy Family is not overhyped. It's worth the hype. You should check it out. 4 stars, solid 4 stars on all the books that I've read from them. 2 and 3 are no different. They're very cute. They have just the right amount of action and mystery. I'm hoping to watch the anime once I finish the books. However, due to the popularity of manga, it is very slow going in my consumption of the series, but I will finish them soon. I also read My Hero Academia Volume 7. My Hero Academia is another one that I have to take a break from. After the 7th book, I was just kind of like, I'm kind of over the story. I'm just kind of over My Hero Academia. Maybe it's because all the books that I've read so far were already covered in the anime, and I watched the anime like 4 years ago. I'm just over it. I'm just bored of 3-star mangas. On a brighter note, I read Goodnight Pun Pun Omnibus #1 by Inyo Asano. This book was recommended to me by one of my exes, I believe, like forever ago, like years and years and years ago. And I was like, that book looks stupid. And if you read the plot, they're like, oh, it's about this little boy. They say he's a boy, but he looks like a weird duck thing. And just like all this really traumatizing stuff happens to him. I thought it would be stupid, but I read it and it was freaking awesome. I mean, it was horrible, but I really enjoyed how weird and like crazy the characters were, how shitty the characters were, but in a realistic way, in a very human way. Especially the characters of Pun Pun and his family. They may not look like they're human, but they sure do act really human, if you know what I'm saying. It's also kind of like coming of age in the first omnibus for Pun Pun. Also the whole him talking to God thing. I don't even know how to talk about it. It's such a weird book. If you really like weird and aggressive and dark manga, I think you should read it. I gave it 5 stars. It was so fucking weird. It was very weird. But I loved it. Another weird one, Blood on the Tracks #2 by Shuzu Oshimi. I am probably pronouncing all these Japanese names so badly, and I apologize, but Blood on the Tracks #2, as usual, the art is beautiful, but this book was weird. The first book, I was like, okay, and then this book, I was like, what the heck? Huh? What is happening? But by the end of the second book, I was like, please no. I don't like where this is going. Not in a like horror way, and like a ew, gross way. I don't want to spoil it, but the ending, it was really uncomfortable for me. I don't want to talk about it. I still want to finish the series, it's just a weird one. The next thing I read was actually a comic book. I don't usually like to include actual comic book issues in these videos because I don't think it's fair to judge a comic by a single issue. However, this was a one-shot, so I'm gonna talk about it. It was Star Trek Ferengi by Christina Rice, illustrated by Andy Price. This is a one-off story based off of Star Trek DS9. I think Star Trek DS9 is my current favorite Star Trek. I don't know what it is. The characters are just better for some reason. So this comic book follows the misadventure of Quark and his family. If you know anything about Quark, he's a Ferengi. Ferengi have a very money-based culture. Their whole culture is around acquiring wealth. But this book isn't really about that. It's more about the female culture of the species. If you watch any Star Trek, you know that Ferengi females they don't really have rights. They're not even legally allowed to wear clothing. So if you look at the cover, I was really drawn in by this because I'm like, Ferengi feminism? But yes, it was a great story. I really hope they do more one-shots like this for DS9 because I really got a kick out of it. 5 out of 5 stars. I finished 7 to Eternity. I read volumes 3 and 4. 7 to Eternity is a comic series, graphic novel series by Rick Remender. I'm slowly becoming a Rick Remender fan as I'm consuming more of his media. And it was so good. I honestly cried. Like I almost want to cry thinking about how good that series was. 7 to Eternity was such a perfect fantasy series. It's only 4 novels, so if you get your hands on it, I highly encourage you to read it. As I mentioned in my previous video, the first book was a little hard to kind of entrench yourself in the world, but by the 3rd and 4th books, I was just so in it. I was so invested, and the ending was perfect and sad and kind of messed up. But if you know me, I kind of like the endings to be a little messed up, so I think I rated the first one 4 out of 5, but series as a whole, 5 out of 5 stars. Another book that I had a hard time with that I read was Grendel Omnibus Volume 1, Hunter Rose by Matt Wagner. Grendel has a very huge fan base, and maybe it's more of like a Gen X thing, but I had a hard time getting invested in Grendel. First off, the introduction to the omnibus is 47 pages. Excuse me? 47 pages, is that really necessary? And it details the whole expanse of what happens to Grendel as a whole. So I'm reading this omnibus for the first time, not knowing anything about Grendel, and I get the whole series of comics explained to me in 47 pages, which is really tiny print, by the way. The art is fantastic, but I'm just like, holy moly, this is so much information to absorb in the beginning of an omnibus. The whole book, every issue is illustrated by a different artist, and Matt Wagner only illustrates like a few. I had a really hard time getting into the first half of the Grendel omnibus. However, once I got past the first half of the book, I started to become more invested in the characters. The story kind of started clicking into place for me. The ending of the book was crazy, dude. Like, it really put you into the mind of Grendel and how much of a sociopath he kind of was, even though he did save people, but he also killed a lot of people. It was very like mob mafia focused, very noir. It's a genre I can appreciate. Like, I really like Sin City, and that's the vibe it kind of gives off, but the whole like organized crime thing kind of bothers me, and it's not my genre of choice. However, I did really like Grendel, especially the end. I almost DNF'd this book. I'm glad that I didn't, because it did have a good payoff. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. Another manga that I read, completely different genre, was Cat Plus Gamer by Wataru Nadatani. This is a fairly new manga series. It's about, you know, a gamer and her cat. She really only works so that she can go home and afford her gaming lifestyle. Honestly, she seems a little neurodivergent. She gets this cat, and it's very slice of life. Every little chapter is like her relating something in a video game to her cat. You get some like parts from the cat's perspective. It's just really cute. Cats, gaming, we love those things here. Solid 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Hunter x Hunter Volume 3 by Yoshihiro Togashi. Hunter x Hunter is just an overall great manga. It's very shonen. In the 3rd volume, we're still kind of in the like testing phase of the protagonists becoming hunters in the story. They're very like unique in sometimes unconventional ways of getting through these puzzles that they're in. You're really getting to know a lot of the characters, and I'm starting to get attached to a lot of them, so I really hope none of them like get killed off or anything soon. Once I get a chance to read more manga, I'm really going to be focusing on more actual books in the next month. I do want to read the rest of the Hunter x Hunter books. I'm not really gravitating towards shonen lately, but Hunter x Hunter is a great manga. Highly recommend. 4 out of 5 stars. The last graphic novel / manga that I read in the month of August was The Liminal Zone by Juji Ito. This is the newest Junji Ito book that came out recently. The cover is gorgeous. The art is phenomenal and terrifying, and honestly, the stories in this book, I loved all of them, every single one. The first one was my favorite. I don't know the name of the chapter off the top of my head, but it was just about this weeping woman. At first I was like, oh, I cry a lot, this is relatable. And then it got to a point where I'm like, oh my god, this bitch cannot stop crying. There's a story about like the suicide forest in Japan that I really liked. All the stories were pretty good. There was like a couple panels of the book that I looked at them and I'm like, nightmare fuel, thank you. I advise to pick it up, but don't take my word for it, read it yourself. That is all of the graphic novels and manga that I read in the month of August. Did you read any of these books? And what did you think of them? Let me know in the comments below. Leave a like and hit subscribe if you'd like to see more of this mug in your life. If not, I can't really tell you what to do, but you're gonna be missing out. Anyway, I hope you all have a phenomenal month of September. If you're going back to school, study hard. If you're, you know, just another person living a normal day like me, I wish you luck. Bye.